Beat It AT, what up? Beat It AT, what up?
Bitch, I'm the baddest, most cheated on the atlas, my Panamera. Yup, bitch, I'm the fastest. Me, I get it faster. Me, I fuck her faster. Me, I get it faster.
What is up, everyone? It is Andrew Rapier here of Beat It AT Production and Publishing, bringing you guys a new YouTube video. In this YouTube video, I'll be breaking down a mixing and mastering techniques I use for my latest beat session. This is a beat session that I did called Smooth Kodak Black Lil Yachty type beat. So I already made the beat. I actually already mixed it, mastered it. I did it on the beat session. It's a really quick mix and quick master, but it gets the job done and it sounds pretty well. It sounds pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and actually play a segment of the beat. Pull up the mixer. You guys get to see what is going on, and yeah. So I figured I'll play it. Then I'll start breaking down exactly what everything does and why I did it. So yeah, here we go. So I figured that's a good enough playthrough of the beat. You can see here, these are all the instruments I used. This would be my tag, and this would be the riser. All of these are the instruments that I used, so I really didn't use a whole bunch. A lot of these percussions were part of all these drums can be found over at beatitat.com. These percussions, I think the kick are in that hat. Majority of these sounds are from the new Achilles kit by Hit Play, which is available at beatitat.com. But then the other sounds like the 808 and the snap are from Beat It AT drum kit 3.0. Yeah, or yeah, the third installment of the AT drum kit series. So where should we start out? I guess we should start out with the fact of how I really go about my mixing. I normally like all my instruments to be pretty low. Normally I have these drums that come out a little bit louder, but I actually only mixed this through the monitors, and I always try to, let's go over here. So here's the guitar. Let's just do a solo so you guys get to hear the guitar. I'm gonna turn off all the mastering too, so it's just normal. Oh, that's not the guitar. So gross beat, doing the half down, half speed, a little bit of reverb, then a parametric EQ. That's just a old telephone effect. Cutting up to about 500 hertz, and then cutting pretty much creating a bandpass. Yeah, because a bandpass would be cutting any elements that are below and above, whereas a notch would be like a dip. So real quick, that would be like a notch, whereas the bandpass is like the opposite. But I don't need that. So I pulled down the guitar a fair amount. Here's our main instrument, the atmosphere. Another half speed. So if it wasn't our half speed, it would sound like this. But I like the half speed personally. And then I pretty much cut around here just because I don't want any bass notes, and then I wanted to do a little dip in that mid range. So because the artist is gonna have his vocal range, like his vocals lay around in here. So I figured there's no point to have a whole bunch of frequencies coming in, because I don't want the artist to fight against the beat, and I want them to sit nicely. Now, it's obviously not my job it's not necessarily my job as a beat maker to prep for the artist and cutting these frequencies. That's more for the engineer, the recording engineer, or whatever. When the artist comes in, records, they're gonna try to make those vocals sit properly in the beat. So I'm not getting too worried about it. I wouldn't say anyone else should worry too much about it, but I take it into consideration. And I didn't add any compression to this because I just figured there was no point. I figured we were going to compress the master a fair amount, and a lot of these like VSTs like Nexus and Atmosphere already add a lot of compression to the sounds. Alright, so then I got this piano. Let's turn off the guitar. Now normally I do an EQ before my reverb, because why are you going to want to EQ something? Like, why are you going to add reverb to a sound that you're wanting to EQ to prep it later? You know what I mean? It's better to refine the sound perfectly and then add on additions. But I was going for a specific vibe, and so I wanted to create that band pass for that radio type of sound where it's like coming out like a radio. So you can see it starts sounding pretty full because all these sounds combined, they just make everything sound a whole lot more fuller. It's part of the sound selection process for beats. And then I had this pad. So it's honestly just simple chords. It's just supposed to layer on top of the atmosphere, Rhodes or whatever, the electric piano, to make it a little bit more fuller. So if I pull up the done, because I did a stereo enhancer, I wanted to spread it, had a little bit of reverb. I did even more stereo separation with the reverb. And then here's the same thing. I always try to cut the low end if possible, unless if I really want to keep it, because when I have that 808 come in, it's gonna be pretty much taking in that whole space. So I try to really make my mixes conscious about the space of the audio that's coming through. So when we listen with all the sounds, so it sounds pretty good, and they're pretty leveled and they're pretty low, and we can see exactly where it's hitting. When they're all combined, we can look in the master. So when we added in that 808, this is the subby tuned 808 from the Beat It AT Drum Kit 3.0. Here's the mixer, that the EQ I've done boosting a little bit in that low mid, and then definitely in that 60 hertz range. That 60 hertz range is main bass area. So that's what I usually focus on. Then I do a little bit of compression. And I just use this limiter to like catch anything that might go over, but it's really so I could see like the audio signature of like how loud it is going. And a good thing, good comparison to what I use is just kind of like seeing how loud it is as compared to the instruments. I usually like my 808 sitting around the same range, not too loud. Honestly, I could pull it down a little bit more. So let's see if I pull it down like 2 notches. I just turn on this limiter. It doesn't do anything, but just catches it if it goes over 0 dB. Just in case. I try, obviously you want to mix it so it doesn't go over, but I'm just trying to ensure it, essentially. Alright, so for the kick, do a slight boost in that 60 hertz and then a little bit more, cutting out a lot of the high end, but not as, that's pretty similar. It's not as dramatic as the 808. So here's the 808, here's the kick. You can see the kick kind of has a little bit more, with by the time I can pull that kick out a little bit more. So yeah, as I said, honestly this was a really quick rough version. So when I start adding in these other percussions, it's kind of clicking right now because it's using up Omnisphere and a couple other VSTs. So if you hear the clicking, it's not intended. It's just using up a lot of CPU and while recording the screen. So for the most part, I try to have my drums laid on top of it. Ooh, excuse me, that was my stomach. I am hungry. I don't know if you guys could hear that. My stomach just started growling. Anyways, back to the point. If we start looking over at this, the snap is really close to the kick, but I always leave my snares slightly under the kick. I like to have my kick like pouncing through. I don't like to have too much of a loud snare snap because I feel like I can draw it away from the actual beat in a way, if that makes any sense. Like, not really draw away from the beat, but it can distract the listener, or it just won't sound good. It might sound too harsh. So that's pretty much a quick rundown of this mix. I'm not trying to go too complicated. The cymbal crash, have a reverb, have a slight delay, and I didn't want any of the low end on the crash. I wanted it pretty saturated in that high end frequency range. And I also do note that when I master it, it's going to make a slight change difference in loudness and compression wise. So it's going to bring up everything and kind of smash it together. So if we go into our master, I got an EQ. This, yeah, 56 is pretty good. Little dip in that mid range. I've already mentioned that I'm trying to have some vocal room. Not too much. I'm not focusing on it too much, but I'm keeping that in mind when I'm working on this. Sound Goodizer, all Sound Goodizer is a compressor, and it's a compressor. You can look inside Maximus. There's actually 4, here, I'll pull it up for you guys. There's 4 compression settings, and they are essentially what Sound Goodizer does. So if we look inside, here, Sound Goodizer presets A, B, C, D. So if you guys want to see what Sound Goodizer actually does, it tells you right there. But I personally like the first one. I just apply the most slightest compression. Anything that's like a 1 knob feature, you should be worried about. Not worried about, but like, you should definitely keep it in mind, because anything that's 1 knob, it's kind of scary of like, oh, me just moving this one thing is going to make my beat sound great. No, because that's going to be affecting, who knows what it's affecting, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So be cautious about that stuff. It's better just to go through and do it by hand, because then you have complete control of what's going on. But Sound Goodizer ends up adding a nice little flair. So if we listen to it, now if I turned off, there's a slight difference. Now when I add isotope, that's when things actually come together more, because I'm actually doing compression in some stereo imaging. So if I look into my stereo imager, I did the stereoize because normally that's not clicked. I would be cautious about using this. Don't overdo it, which you can, but it can work in your favor. I don't always do stereoize or stereo imaging. Just something about it, just it can create phasing issues with your beat or song, and it can have negative effects apparently. Not apparently, but sometimes. But when using it in this, I found it to be just fine. I'm gonna turn, and then opening up the maximizer. This is just a simple little limiter. So if we listen to it now. So it doesn't peak ever, which I'm glad. I'm keeping it pretty much leveled pretty fairly. Much quieter. You can see how it's much quieter. Because this right here is with it off, but if I turn it back on, so you can see, here's when it's loud, and here's when it's quiet because it's off. So I'm trying to just bring it up a little bit louder. I don't want it to have I don't want it to be completely smashed. Mind you, I'm just pulling this. Nothing's going on in this limiter. I have no settings on. It's just a limiter that's on there, just so I could see how loud it is and gauge if I need to compress it more. Because what compression will do, will just compress the audio, leaving less dynamic range. And I want to leave some dynamic range, but at the same time, I want to get the loudest that I can with this beat. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this mixing and mastering. This was just a breakdown. It wasn't a tutorial. I mean, it can be used as a tutorial to show you guys how you can achieve it and do it, how I did it. But hopefully this was beneficial in showing you guys how I came across and did it for this beat session. I mean, I made the whole beat in like, I don't know, like 30-40 minutes. So, I mean, I don't really spend too much time fiddling with the mixing and mastering. I know based off of repetition where I'm trying to go with it already. So I already have numerous mixing and mastering tutorials, But if you guys want more, let me know. If you guys want any specific tutorials, just let me know in the comments down below. What I do want to say is I want to point out that you can check in the description down below for a GroupMe. We have a GroupMe page, the Beat It AT GroupMe. There's like over 100 members in that GroupMe where we talk. It's a community. We try to share ideas. We share new things we're working on. And if you guys want to just get feedback on something you're working on, it's a dope place to go. So yeah, the link for the GroupMe is down below. You can get that GroupMe app on your iPhone or Android. And once you have an account on GroupMe, you can pretty much access any groups that you are in. So I would highly suggest joining our Beat It AT GroupMe. And then I also have a course over at Odular. Odular is another music sound distribution site where we sell pretty much high quality sound kits, drum kits, loops, yada yada. We have like hundreds of suppliers. We're slowly uploading more and more kits over there, but we also have a university section. In that university section, there's 2 teachers, me and Max Carteau. Max Carteau is an EDM producer that's performed at Ultra and other EDM festivals. But if you guys want to learn more about rap, hip-hop, publishing, production, then I would suggest joining my course, because that's where we focus on that stuff. So yeah, just want to point that out. And yeah, there's more goodies down in the description, so I'll see you guys later.